I have a question for you.
All right.
Okay. One story that we didn't get to, which really we don't cover usually, because it really doesn't have anything to do with the business of video games, but has more to do with the culture, is what happened this week regarding for G4TV. Basically, G4TV a long time ago was a terrestrial channel or cable channel that just talked about tech and video games. After about 12 years, they shut down in 2014, and then last year they designed G4 again into a YouTube channel that was being run by Comcast. They started in January of this year, and then it was announced Sunday that after they did layoffs the previous month, that they're shutting down G4TV effective immediately. That is just 10 months after they just relaunched the entire channel. There are a lot of discussions as to why. There's a lot of thoughts as to what happened and whether it was really a good idea to do it in the first place. And we may go over that here, but I want to pose the question to Zero here. Zero, what do you think the closing of G4 tells you about the state of coverage in the video game industry?
Honestly, it just looks like that you have to run a very lean operation in order to just make the bills and everything.
Yeah.
Because you've got some other bigger YouTube channels, and they have a staff count of maybe anywhere from like 40 to 50 employees on staff. Mm-hmm. Whereas with G4, I was seeing reports of them potentially having anywhere from 200 to 300 employees running this whole YouTube outfit. And first thing I thought was, holy cow, if that's the case, that they're running just triple the manpower compared to like any other big name YouTube channel that runs like video game news and stuff. Yeah, this is clearly a management problem. This is clearly someone who's trying to run the YouTube channel like a cable TV show and not thinking about just their overhead. Just this looks like just a management problem in general.
Yeah.
And then I was seeing some other stuff too, like when they were hiring people like Amaranth to kind of show up and do like guest segments on some of their shows on their YouTube and Twitch channels. They were paying her anywhere from like $20,000 to $30,000 just to appear. So again, just someone who's thinking in like cable TV kind of deals, not, hey, this is a YouTube outfit. We have to be a little bit more judicious about our money flow.
Yeah. The G4 didn't have a lot, well, comparatively, G4 didn't have a lot of subscribers and views for something that was corporately backed. If I look at G4 TV right now on YouTube, 133,000 subscribers. Okay. With that, I've seen small YouTuber, like this is considered a small YouTube channel, a small successful YouTube channel. There are those that do like 200,000 subscribers and did more views than G4, and they say that they don't make enough to make a living. They make enough to have some like secondary, make this a secondary job, like a secondary cash flow, essentially. Like with that, those type of numbers, like there was writing on the wall from the beginning that this wasn't going to last. And we'll get to what I think people are blaming for this to a certain extent, but you're right. The people who should be blamed on this is management. They completely bungled this. They spent like a lot of money on sets. Like there's no reason why the sets need to be that need to be the way they were, with expensive furniture and decorations and stuff like that. The amount of staff that they had was unnecessary. Even small YouTubers that are just two people don't make enough money to call it their main job with the amount of views and the amount of subscribers they get. Like, you're absolutely right. This was solely a management. This was a management problem. But the thing I will also add is that G4 is a relic. Even when they were announcing like G4 was coming back, yeah, people were excited, but everyone else was also like, wait a minute, like what G4 provided, we get from different channels. Like if we want to watch weird trailers from video games, we can just watch a weird trailer from a video game. If we want to watch a tech channel, there's a tech channel. If we want to do someone who just reviews video games, people prefer to watch reviews from one person, so they know who that person is and what they're interested in. Not in the way that XPlay used to do it, where multiple people would review a game and they would all collectively together do one review. People aren't interested in that anymore. So they brought back G4, but thought, oh, they'll just take it back as it was conceptually, which wasn't the case. It wasn't that interesting.
Yeah, it definitely had an identity problem because they were trying to jump on the nostalgia train, but at the same time, they wanted to also grow a new audience, and those sort of approaches are sort of diametrically opposed to each other because if you're trying to get new viewers in, they're not really going to understand some of the old bits and tropes that G4 used to do and everything. But at the same time, if you want to get on the nostalgia train, if you try to go too new with it, then anyone who had any sort of warm nostalgia for G4 is going to look at the channel and go, yeah, this isn't the G4 I remember. Fuck this.
Yeah. And, well, okay, let's get into what everyone's saying is the reason why this got shut down. And that is the rant that Frosterin had with her sexism in gaming rant. There were a bunch of problems with that rant. And it wasn't that she was calling out people for being not that nice, we'll say. The issue is that she basically, one of the main points that she said was Olivia Munn and Morgan Webb weren't made to be easy on the eyes for you. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Yes, they're talented. And after a point, people liked them even without the fact that they were attractive. Like, the attractiveness was how do you put it? Was a bonus in the end. But if you really think people weren't watching it to not see a photo shoot of Morgan Webb on Maxim, or to see Olivia Munn in a skimpy Sailor Moon outfit, you're fucking crazy. Like, those are the reasons a lot of, and at the time, young men were watching those shows. Not just because they were covering video games, because pretty ladies. And you know what? G4 at the time really dove in on the raunchiness and on the scantily clad women. They did it all the time. So people were expecting that too. And when they didn't get that, they left. And but that's still, again, that's a management problem too, because they essentially just said, okay, let's just take the brand and go. Not really realizing this is the identity that people were thinking about when it came to G4. And the G4, I watched a couple of streams, I've seen a few videos. I could have watched any of those videos in 100 different types of channels. Easily. There was nothing special, nothing new, nothing edgy, nothing that gave them an identity. It was boring. It was boring. And there are so many options now that, like, G4 back then was a necessity. G4 wouldn't be that anymore. And that's it. That's what happened with G4 on that with me. What do you think?
To your point about the Frosterin rant and everything, I've been seeing some chatter today because apparently she and Adam Sessler have basically been slamming anyone who is a fan of G4 and everything for not supporting the new YouTube reboot and everything. But there's been some talk out of the woodwork where Frost will contest people and say, no, my rant was completely 100% approved. There was no question about it. It was a general net good thing. there have been now contentious reports coming out of people who were just laid off from this Sunday that that rant was not 100% approved, that nobody knew she was going to just pop off like that. Right. So yeah, that was kind of interesting to see. But the other point that I will make, just because it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, was just how management was so inept at laying everyone off. Just who the hell lays off everyone on a Sunday via a Twitter post?
Yes.
Who? Just who? And it was really sad to see too, because you had like some people who were G4 staffers who follow Wario64 to like buy like a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, and suddenly they wake up, log into Twitter, and first top post that they see is from like Wario64 going, "Hey, yeah, so Comcast has laid off everyone from G4, and you've got a whole bunch of these like lower ranked staffers at G4 going, wow, this is absolutely one of the most depressing days of my life. Just I wake up looking to see if I can buy a PS4, and the guy that I use to help me track a PS5 is the guy telling me that my job has laid me off."
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Wasn't it? The completionist, I forget his name's Gerard something, I forgot what his last name was. Completionist essentially said, "This is how I found out I got laid off. Yay." I'm like, Jesus, that's terrible. But the thing also is, I was surprised that everyone was surprised by this, like the people who were working there. Like, I get it, like it sucks that you got laid off, but you had to have known that this wasn't working out. Like, you couldn't have seen that. You couldn't have seen the numbers you were making. The backlash. The backlash was horrible. The fact that people who were criticizing you was making more money and making more money off of you than you were off of your work. That right there, like, I know a lot of people left around that time. And that should have been the catalyst of saying, "Oh no, we're in a sinking ship here. We need to get out of here." And I get a lot of these people like their jobs, but when you see that happen, when someone like the Quartering is making more money off of you than you are, there is a problem. There is a big problem at that. And yeah, just. Well, let's get into the wider scope of things now, because again, G4 is a relic, okay, and it was a relic and it died off, and it probably should have stayed dead. But let's go deeper now into this. The landscape for covering games, okay, even though the video game industry is worth billions of dollars and makes money hand over fist, the people who surround the industry that cover it aren't making much money, and it looks like jobs of those are becoming fewer and fewer now. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that Kotaku, Polygon, and sites like that are going down at some point. And honestly, I think that's true. I think it will happen at some point. I just don't know when. But like right now, I think like IGN makes $1 billion on what they do, but that number is slowly going down too. Like, they're not as relevant as they used to be. GameSpot is not as relevant as they used to be either. And
yeah, and GameSpot just recently got bought up by the fandom company who owns TV Guide and a whole bunch of other gaming media sites now.
Yeah, and that will mean that it's consolidation time, essentially, to that extent, for them at least, because Giant Bomb was part of that, and I'm waiting for the announcement to go that Giant Bomb is being folded into GameSpot, or at that point. So anyway, what are your thoughts basically on the coverage of all this? Like, the quality of coverage has suffered in the past 10 years as people have become more ideological and politically driven, and they've cared less about actual reporting and more about hot takes and agendas. I think it's gone way downhill at this point when it comes to coverage of games. At this point, But YouTubers are thriving. YouTubers are getting all the clicks. They're making most of the money. And I say to people who are interested in having those jobs, make a YouTube channel. Like, that's really the only option you have. Like, because if you work at IGN for, like, let's say 10, 15, 20 years, okay? I don't think you're going to get as popular as a YouTube channel. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen with these big companies and these websites that cover the video game industry?
Unfortunately, I think it's just going to continue down this trend of just trying to capture in on salacious news. So anything that sounds like a little bit of juicy drama in the life. And it pains me because my sort of love story with video game news media has always been just with the hard-hitting investigative pieces. And I've said it at the beginning of the podcast when we were talking, but one of our favorite reporters, Jason Schreier, is probably one of the big reasons I'm so into video game news as I am, because just he's kind of old-fashioned in the journalism mindset that he will vet the hell out of his sources before reporting on something, and he doesn't really like reporting on rumors and hearsay unless he's got actual proof that he can corroborate by other sources too. And that was the kind of reporting I loved just when I was getting into video game news media, both as a video game reviewer and then as a news commentator in some of the other podcast projects that I've been a part of. Just he was the big influence for me, how my mindset has been with video game news. But yeah, just unfortunately over the last decade or so, just the video game news space has just kind of gone down this whole like tabloid rag sort of direction, and it pains me so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole Bayonetta thing is proof of that. Just everyone was just raring to hop on the drama train, going, "Oh man, salacious drama, fuck Platinum, fuck Nintendo," and all this other junk. And of course, just here we are several days later, and Jason Schreier just pops up and says, yeah, so everyone might want to slow their roll for a bit."
Yeah.
And of course, just it was kind of like what you had mentioned in the Discord server that we're on. Just, now you've got YouTubers suddenly having to correct the record and go, "Whoops, so we might have pulled a fast one." And then, of course, I don't know if any of the other news sites who were reporting on this have finally gone back and just posted, "Hey, so this might not seem like it's all that it seems," but yeah, I just hate the direction where video game news is going, and it saddens me because just I love keeping up with the industry. It's always been something that I've been passionate about, but there are some days that, oh God, it is such a trial.
I know. It's embarrassing. It really is. And I used to love going to Kotaku. Kotaku has always been political to a certain extent, but they did have good reporting for a while. But now they're an embarrassment to read sometimes. Like, it is absolutely embarrassing because they oftentimes in some stories, they either get the story wrong or they concentrate on a detail that isn't really part of the story and make that the story. Okay? I was actually kind of shocked when IGN and Kotaku started updating the stories on the Helena Taylor thing. Because normally they would ignore it. When the new details came out, it's like, "Oh, it's old news, no one cares, bye." But the fact that they actually updated it was like, "Whoa, that's a change." It's like, that's different. And that sucks. That's terrible for me to say that, because you would think that these people would want to do their job and have some pride in the job that they're doing. But it just seems like more and more now that these journalists, quote unquote, use this as a springboard to work at gaming companies. And that's a problem. Now, it's also a problem because they're not paid very well. Okay? I will grant that. But I will also say that if someone were to told me, hey, X Kotaku writer makes $60,000 a year, I'd balk and go, he ain't worth that. He's not worth that. Like, Schreier? Yes, Schreier's worth that. But Stephen Totillo, who's also from Kotaku, he was very good. Like, and he now works for Axios. Like, those guys are worth the money. I can't name another person that if they said, hey, he should be making $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year, where I'd go, no. Like, you pay for the quality. And if we're used to shit, and unfortunately, in my opinion, the coverage around video games is shit. It's terrible. It's awful. Like, there's some good pundits, but when it comes to these websites, it's a laborious chore to make sure they're telling the truth and they're being honest and they're actually saying they're doing the correct framing of the story. And the correct framing is the neutral framing. When you have to then read other people to make sure you have the right frame of mind or the right context, just goes to show you like how poor this is. I don't know. Like, once the venture capital dries up on Kotaku and on Polygon and sites like that, like, they're gone. They're done. And it's going to be a bloodbath at some point. Like, when those venture capitalists start looking at it and goes, oh, you guys don't make any money, bye, it's over.
And it's a really sad space in just video game reporting in general, too, because, of course, a lot of sites and YouTubers have to be sponsored, and in order to get those sponsorships, you've got to have the viewership and the subscribers. Mm-hmm. And what brings in the subscribers and just gets everyone clicking and gets everyone talking? Drama and salacious shit.
Yep.
And it's just a really sad state of affairs in the industry, because, of course, just that means if you want to play the game, you gotta make some really spicy vids or news clips or news articles, and just get everyone just clicking. Doesn't matter if you're fueling people on rage, vitriol, just whatever horrid human emotion that you can make people feel to get people clicking and talking. That's kind of the metagame right now in the video game news space, and God, I hate it.
Yeah, it's like, it's embarrassing. Like, it's like they don't really understand their audience sometimes. Like, yes, young people read these sites, but they only read certain things. Okay, they'll read when a game comes out, what a review is, and maybe some salacious drama. But the ones that constantly go back are, I think, people like us who want information on certain things. They're interested in specific details or interesting anecdotes about the industry in itself, stuff like that. And they don't do that anymore. They just do salacious details. They just do salacious stories, bad hot takes. Those are, like, Kotaku is, like, well known for that. Good Lord. And just rage bait after rage bait article. And it's getting on. It is so bad. It's terrible. Like, I really think, sometimes I think that these sites are a secret op mission to give the quartering more views. Seriously. I think sometimes I'm like, wow, I really think that, you just want to get the quartering more views, don't you? That's all this is doing. Like, it's fucking embarrassing. Like, I don't know. Like, I look at all of this and all these people, all these, like, journalist sites for video games, and yeah, like, I wouldn't trust them, and I understand why gamers don't trust them either. And that's bad. That's really bad. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. And not only are they in that situation, either they don't care, or they're too blind to notice that they're in a bad situation. And until they all start laying off, I mean, they're going to continue what they're doing. So, yeah, it's sad. But in regards to G4, I mean, yeah, this was not going to last. And the Frostgren thing, I think, just sped it up. Instead of it being... I don't think it was the reason, but I think her rant sped the process up, essentially, is my opinion. Anything more to add?
Yeah, it's sad that G4's gone. Yeah, it's sad that a bunch of the staff lost their jobs on a Sunday of all days instead of the usual... you get the layoff notice on Friday, or in cases like what happened to me with my job earlier this year, I got laid off on a Monday and then got put on several weeks of leave. So kind of just a shitty situation all around. Should the staff started, maybe dusting off their resumes and started maybe looking somewhere else? Sure, but just maybe they heard some person making rumblings going, oh, they're going to restructure things, it's going to be better, and maybe they decided to kind of hold on to that thin sliver of hope. But I don't blame them, because they're human after all. So.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, and thanks for saying that, because that is true. Like, if they were told by upper management, no, everything's gonna be okay, and management does do this. Everything's going to be okay. We're not going anywhere. You're going to keep your job. It's fine. And then someone high up looks at the numbers and go, no, cancel all this. Get rid of it. That happens, unfortunately. And that probably is what happened at that aspect. But, yeah, but as true as that is, they must have known, with all the backlash and all the hate they were getting, that this wasn't going to work. Because as much as people were, defending them, there was much more giving them shit, and not enough of the people defending them were watching. Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.